Alright, here's a review of number 1 from that quiz that you guys took. Alright, on number 1, we see that right here that these things are adding together. So when they're adding together, all that we got to do is combine our like terms. So when we combine our like terms, we usually like to try to find the biggest exponent. So I got an x squared here, and I've got an x squared here. So if I combine negative 3x squared and x squared, my negative 3 plus this imaginary 1 will give me negative 2, and when I combine like terms, I just keep the like terms, so negative 2x squared. Then I move on to my next highest power of x, and that's just this regular x right here, and this one is right here. Now I have negative 8 here, and then I gotta subtract 6 here, so negative 8 minus 6 is negative 14, and again, just keep the like terms, so it's negative 14x. Then finally, I got some constants to take care of. I got a 5 here, I got a 2 here, so I take 5 plus the 2, and I get 7. And that's all that you need to do in this question. Alright, here's one that you guys can try on your own here. So go ahead and hit pause here for a second, try it on your own, then come back and I'll show you what's going on. Alright, so I assume that you hit pause by now and you tried it on your own. So all we got to do again, because these things are adding, we got to combine our like terms. So here's an x squared, here's an x squared. 8 minus 3 gives me 5, and I just keep the x squared. Then I look for my next power, I got this x, and I got this x. Remember, that has an imaginary 1 here. So I got negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3x. And then I look for my constants. I got a plus 1 and a plus 5, so 1 plus 5 is 6. Alright, here's number 2 from your quiz. Now, we have these two polynomials again, but right now they are subtracting. Okay, and subtracting makes it kind of a pain in the butt, especially when like you're subtracting a negative, or you had a negative, then you're subtracting a positive. All those things kind of get all mixed up. So what we're going to do is we're not going to make this a subtraction problem. We're going to make it an addition problem. So I want to change that minus sign to a plus sign. But now by doing that, I now have to change this q cubed to a negative q cubed. I got to change that 10q squared to a negative. That's just a really big minus sign. And I got to change that minus 4 to a plus 4. All right, now it's exactly like our last problem. I now have two polynomials that are adding. I got a negative, and I got a positive here. So now all we got to do is combine our like terms. I got a q cubed, and I have a negative q cubed, so those will actually just cancel each other out. So I won't have a q cubed in my answer. So now I look for my q squareds. I have a squared here, and I have a squared here. So I take my negative 7, and I got to remember I changed this to a minus sign. So now I got to subtract 10, and that gives me negative 17q squared. My next highest power is just the regular q, and it doesn't have a like term on this side, so all I got to do is rewrite it with its sign that's in front of it. So I just bring down my minus 3q, and then kind of the same type of deal. My only constant in this problem is just this 4. There is no other like term throughout this whole guy, so I just take down my 4 with the sign that's in front of it. So I got plus 4. Alright, now here's one that I want you guys to try out on your own. So go ahead and hit pause, then I'll come back and show you how to do it. Alright, so I'm assuming you guys tried it on your own by now. So these are subtracting again. Alright, when they're subtracting, we don't like that, so we are going to change that minus sign to a plus sign. And by doing that, I got to change all the signs behind it, just the ones behind it. These ones stay as they are, but I got to change these guys right here. So now I'm looking at a negative 4x squared. I'm now looking at a negative 5x, and I'm now looking at a negative 1. I just had to switch all their signs. And then just go back and combine your like terms. So I got 10x squared. I got 10x squared, and right here I got negative 4x squared, so 10 minus 4 will give me 6x squared. Now I look for my x's. I got a negative 3x here, I got a negative 5x here, because remember I changed its sign, so negative 3 minus 5 gives me negative 8x. Then when I look at my constants, I got a positive 2, I got a negative 1, and so 2 minus 1 gives me 1. All right, here's number 3 from your guys' quiz now. So, as we're looking at this, there is no plus sign or minus sign between here. When we just have a term written right by a set of parentheses, we know that they are multiplying. And anytime you're multiplying these polynomials, all you got to do is distribute. So I do 5k squared times k to the 4th. Okay, so when I do that, I have this 5 here, and there is no number to multiply it by, so I'm just going to keep my 5. Really, it's an imaginary 1, so 5 times 1 will still give me 5. And now when I do k squared times k to the 4th, when you're multiplying these variables with exponents, you got to add their exponents together. So 2 and 4 give me k to the 6th. Then I got to distribute my next term. So 5k squared times negative 3k cubed. I take my 5 times my negative 3, which is negative 15. And then when I take my k squared times my k cubed, I got to add those together. So I'm going to get k to the 5th. Then I got to distribute my last guy here. So 5k squared times 2. So I got to take my 5 and multiply it by 2, and that'll give me 10. And then when I have something that has a k squared and I'm multiplying it by something without a k, all I got to do is rewrite my k squared as part of my answer. And that's all you got. All right, here's another one to try on your own. So go ahead and hit pause, try it by yourself, then I'll help you out. All right, so I'm assuming you tried this on your own here. So again, we're just distributing. So I take this 8 times 2, that'll give me 16. And then when I take x cubed times x to the 4th, again, add the exponent, so I get x to the 7th. Then when I distribute my next part, 8x cubed minus times negative 5x squared, 8 times negative 5 gives me negative 40. And then x cubed times x squared, again, add the exponents to get x to the 5th. Then when you distribute this last guy, 8x cubed times 3, I got 8 times 3, which is 24, and I have my x cubed here, and there's no other kind of x to combine it with, so I just keep my x cubed as part of my answer. Here's number 4 off your quiz here. So now we got a binomial times a binomial. Again, you know they're multiplying because there is no plus or minus sign here. So anytime we're multiplying, we're just distributing. In this case, I have 2 terms that I got to distribute. I got to distribute my p to this and to this, and then I'll go back and I'll distribute my 7 to this and to this. And then I'll have some like terms to combine. Okay, so when we do that now, our p times p will give us p squared. Then we do our p times negative 1, and that gives me negative p, or negative 1p. Then I got to take my 7 times p, and that'll give me positive 7p. And then I got to take my 7 times negative 1, which is negative 7. And then I have some like terms to combine. Right here I've got a negative p and a 7p. And again, when you're combining like terms, you want to keep the like term. So I'm just going to rewrite p squared as part of my answer. I'm going to rewrite this minus 7 as part of my answer because they didn't have any like terms. But now as I combine negative p and 7p, that's going to give me a positive 6p. All right, so here's another one to try on your own. Go ahead and hit pause, try it out. All right, so I'm assuming that you went ahead and tried this guy out. So now again, I got binomial times binomial. So x times x will give me x squared. X times 2 will give me 2x. Then I got to move to distributing my 5. So 5 times x is 5x. And then 5 times 2 will give me 10. Once again, I have some like terms to combine here in the middle. I got a couple of x's. So I'm going to keep my x squared as part of my answer. I'm going to keep my 10 as part of my answer. But now when I combine 2x and 5x together, I'm going to get 7x. So x squared plus 7x plus 10 is your final answer.